I'd like to take a moment to thank the Blockchain Academy. The Blockchain Academy is an educational training firm offering blockchain training to the enterprise. The Blockchain Academy offers courses for both management and developers, offering delivery online and in live classrooms. The Blockchain Academy works with enterprise clients to create and deliver innovative training programs globally. They recently announced a new blockchain course targeted towards attorneys. To learn more about the Blockchain Academy, visit them at www.theblockchainacademy.com.
This is the Blockchain 360 podcast. Blockchain 360 is a podcast of interviews and discussions about the current state and direction of blockchain. Thank you for joining us today. If this is your first time listening, then thank you for coming. The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at our website, blockchain360.co. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter at Blockchain360. All links discussed today are included in the show notes.
Hi, my name is Brian Nielsen, and I'm your host here on Blockchain 360 podcast, where we talk about everything blockchain. My guest today is Richard Brownstein, and he is the CEO of AuraBlocks. Richard is an entrepreneur and with several successful exits and strong leadership skills. His background is colorful, with a degree in music and electrical engineering. This blend of arts and science offers a unique perspective in the technology-driven world of blockchain. Currently, he leads a team of 5 at the MIT Future FinTech Commerce course, where they captured the top slot in their class, focusing on a unique blockchain insurance product using tontine actuarial models. His 28 years as CEO of a financial service company with over 500 million assets under management has helped him understand the problems that blockchain can solve. Richard, welcome to the Blockchain 360 podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So in your bio here, we have a word that you actually had to help explain to me. What is a tontine actuarial model?
Well, it's interesting because I was a tontine is a more some people look at it as a morbid concept in that the concept is that, let's say everyone puts in $100 and there's 5 people. Uh, and the last one standing after everyone passes away gets the whole $500. So they made a joke about it in a MASH episode, but what that is actually a strategy or concept design that was created back in the 1500s by Tontine, Italian gentleman. But what happened in this country prior to 1900, everybody in the insurance business just about had a retirement plan that was based on a tontine design. Although we don't even recognize the word nowadays, it was a very prevalent strategy and that the insurance companies had and they used for their annuities. And what happened in the early 1900s, like around 1904, 1910, 6, something like that, they were abused, dramatically abused, and as a result, they were outlawed to be used. You couldn't do tontines. But now, in today's day and age, with all the technology and the security that can be enforced around digital modeling, uh, I believe that we can reintroduce tontines into the actuarial calculations for an annuity and hence make a much more interesting product design at a lower cost and have a fairness when you link it with the blockchain process.
Interesting. Now, your background is not in technology, it's actually in finance. And you were the CEO of a company that financial planning. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, it goes back. I had my actual background was in the music industry, where I built recording studios and was a recording engineer for many years before I transitioned into the financial industry. And yeah, for the 28 years prior to the sale of my business, I built financial planning, doing estate planning and high net worth with high net worth individuals, and it was a lot of fun.
Now, you were undergoing some type of merger at the time. when you were first introduced to blockchain. So, how is it? Tell us the story of how you got into blockchain and how did you transition from financial advisory to actually creating a blockchain company?
Well, what it's kind of funny. Um, I have a very close friend, Steve Wasserman, who is a entrepreneur, ran a couple of public companies. We would get together, have lunch, and back in early 2016, he mentioned a word FinTech to me. And I said, FinTech, what the heck is FinTech? And here I am running this company. So I started to learn more about it. And my business was rather mature at the time. So I spent a lot of time exploring this world of FinTech because I was looking at ways of finding niches to be able to help people and manage their money, and that was why my business. So I explored fintech, found out about blockchain, got very interested in that. I heard the word blockchain about in 2012, but I read this article in Forbes magazine, but I just kind of dismissed it. But in I just started to get more and more involved, and then I took this course at MIT, and after I finished the course in December, I said, this is a great opportunity to look into startups that are generating some money to help manage that. I could apply a lot of the things I learned at this course. But my broker dealer was saying, what the heck is fintech? What the heck is blockchain? And they were pushing back, saying, no, 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 you can't go there. And they call it an outside business activity. And they said I couldn't even talk about it. At the time I was
You couldn't even talk about it?
no, I couldn't even tell people about it because they didn't know what it was and this cryptocurrency thing, and they just didn't understand. I said, no, no, I'm going to be working with enterprise companies and helping people. No, they didn't get it. So I'm in the middle of merging my company with another, and we're talking about all this stuff, and I'm getting tremendous pushback where I couldn't talk about it, and finally. If you can imagine, I'm sitting at the conference table and I just kind of lean back in my chair and cross my fingers and kind of look up towards the ceiling. I said, guys, why don't you just buy me? Why don't you just buy me? And they looked at me and they said, if we start this path, we can't really reverse it. We can't go the other way. I said, that's fine. Because I looked at blockchain as the great opportunity because I saw the internet. I used to be a bulletin board operator on the internet. I had my own little BBS with a
Sure.
300 baud modem, and doing that whole thing. I had the IBM PC with the chiclet keyboard, they called it. But
Yep.
anyway, I was playing around with that. And then one day I closed my eyes and just opened them. And hey, the internet was all over the place. And I kind of missed that. And I was focused in the industry of finance. So I said, I don't want to see the same thing and miss that in blockchain because I saw it as a huge opportunity. And that's why I said, buy me, and I'll move on to the next, which was get myself involved with the blockchain at the enterprise level.
Right. So you created AuraBlocks, and so you created AuraBlocks back when?
Actually, it was I'd say the summer, maybe April of 17. Yeah, it was like April of 17. So that's when we put this all together, and then we got involved with Oracle, and that's when the whole thing really just started with Oracle like that.
Okay. Before we jump into the Oracle story here, so what is your 2 minute or 2 sentence elevator pitch on blockchain and AuraBlocks?
Well, it's funny. The people are trying to figure out what blockchain is, and they use all these technical terms trying to put it together to get people to understand. I kind of boiled it down to this. You used to go to a post office, to take your letter. You write a letter, you go to post office or give it to postal postman, right? And the post office is your intermediary. So in other words, we used to go to use a post office as an intermediary just to manage our letter sending process. Now we have email.
Right.
Blockchain is going to do the same thing for money, documents of value such as stock certificates, as well as assets that have been digitized, like real estate.
Okay. So then how did you create then this relationship with Oracle? And what is the relationship? I mean, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of listeners who actually know that Oracle is one of the blockchain as a service providers, but why is it you selected Oracle and what's the value you get out of that relationship? And what's the value you
The
give?
yeah, well, I looked at I met a gentleman. We became partners, and we decided he's a technologist, and I decided that and we decided that we would look at Oracle because they were in the formative stages. They had just chosen Hyperledger, the Fabric,
Sure.
as the foundational element for their blockchain service. And we got in early and said, why Oracle? Because we had an opportunity to get in, first of all, and that's fantastic in itself, to get to the early access program. So we were one of four companies, and we looked at Oracle and said, my gosh, they've got everything from, the technology and the base part of the structure of infrastructure and base rails, right to the application and everything in between. They're a global company. And quite frankly, we figured if we could just get a little bit of the crumbs and the drippings that come out of the blockchain world, we'll be very, very happy boys. So that's really how it started. But the Oracle being the long tail, if we could get in at the beginning, which we did, uh, that would be the way that we would get ourselves set up. And so we started down that path, and we knocked on the right door. So when Oracle had Open World in October of 17, which is their big key event globally that brings in they show off all of their new shiny objects. We were one of the four companies that was able to present the Oracle platform, and we had two working POCs at that time. So that kind of launched our company.
So what were the two POCs that you had functional?
One was they call it a merchant cash advance, and the other was is an invoice reconciliation process. So the merchant cash advance is actually a little more interesting, and the way that works is in the typical small business, you have a credit card machine and you just swipe the credit card, and based on the receipts of your credit card, you would work. Let's say if you needed to get a loan, you could work with an outside third party service that would advance money against your credit card
Right.
receipts. So they do that as an underwriting process. They say, okay, over the course of next month, 12 months, we expect to see this kind of flow from your credit card. So we'll give you an advance this much. And then when you pay us back, we'll just take the credit card receipts and keep a portion. You get the balance, and that works fine. Unfortunately, in real life, what happens is once these merchants get their advance on the credit card, the next thing they want to do is figure out how to keep as much as possible. Oftentimes, not saying that these people are all nefarious, because they're not, but a few people are, and they'll change credit card machines. They'll not give them the statements from the banks and so forth, and it makes it the company that loaned the money or advanced the money, a very difficult process to collect, to verify things. So where blockchain fits in here is if we could tie in right to their general ledger, the heartbeat of their operation, we could monitor their receipts. And then we have a smart contract in here. So we have an auditor, the lending company, and you also have the merchant. So the auditor monitors the receipts, and it's all in one central blockchain or one source of truth, being the general ledger. So what happens is, as the credit card receipts come in, they hit the general ledger of the company, and we see that. And then if the credit card receipts are in alignment with the underwriting, the interest rate is low, and it could actually be lower because of competitive technology
Sure.
advantages. But if the credit receipts do not meet that expectation of flow, then the smart contract could kick in and charge an extra percentage or two automatically for failure to meet your obligated you know um, stream
Sure.
of income. So that's how we put the blockchain around the merchant cash receipt. Now, what we can do with that is we have the smart contract in a process, and we can call that process smart lending. So that can be now applied to any kind of lending
Right.
mechanism out
No,
there.
that's an excellent use for blockchain. Now,
Yeah.
did you build this since you referenced that Oracle's platform is friendly to Hyperledger Fabric? Did you
Yes,
build
we
this on
built this
Fabric?
on the blockchain platform. We made it available on a mobile phone so that you could, be in the field and you could monitor your whole business. So the individual merchant could monitor their business, and then the company that's doing the merchant advance or the loans could monitor their entire block of business if they were so inclined. It also makes for an interesting opportunity where the uh, other persons, let's say a company wants to get a loan, because it's blockchain and technology based. Uh, Another part of this is all of these banks might have a risk appetite that would be a certain threshold, and they could look at opportunity or lead flow or or loan flow opportunities, and based on their risk appetite decide which ones they would want to try to bid at, and they could bid for the different loans.
I would like to take a moment to thank one of our sponsors, the Blockchain Academy. The Blockchain Academy is an educational training firm offering blockchain training for developers and stakeholders. The Blockchain Academy is currently offering the following live courses: Blockchain Security, Hyperledger Developer Workshop, and Ethereum Zero to DApp. Visit the Blockchain Academy's website for course outlines and course dates. The Blockchain Academy's courses can be delivered as a company-specific training, tailor-made to fit your organizational needs, delivered both on-site and online. The Blockchain Academy's training is cost-effective, flexible, and can be conducted in a manner that best suits your organizational needs. To learn more about the Blockchain Academy, visit them at www.theblockchainacademy.com. Now, in your bio, we talked about, I'm going to step back a little bit, about
Sure.
you leading the team of 5 MIT people for the future tech. And you focused actually on a blockchain insurance product using those Tortine actuarial models. So, what was that you built? And did you do that in 2017, or was that
Uh,
a little earlier?
Uh, ac- Actually, it was 2016.
Okay.
So yeah. Here's what happened. It's kind of interesting. This guy Moish Milevsky, Moshe Milevsky, nice guy, Jewish boy out of Toronto. He's works at the university. I think it's the University of Toronto. No, what's McGill? Maybe it's McGill.
It's Miguel, yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Anyway, he's up there and thought leader on. And he's been promoting tontines. And the way I first heard of him was when I was involved in the financial planning practice. He was really an advocate hating variable annuities. And all of the industry that was financial planning at that time in the early 2000s hated this guy. And then suddenly he turns around and figures out that all of these guaranteed benefits that these variable annuities offered were actually mispriced dramatically to the event that or effect that consumers were getting a great deal, so he said. And he proved it with his models. He's a mathematician and an actuary. And so, therefore, all of these companies started hiring him to bring him on to talk about how great variable annuities were. And in one of these speeches that I went to, he talked about tontines. Kind of went by me, but I was fascinated with what they are. So, a few years later, I see a major article in the research magazine with him on the cover talking about tontines. So I started reading this more. I said, what are these? What's going on here? And anyway, it got me thinking, and I reached out to an actuary and I started to talk about the idea of what could we do with a tontine on an annuity in this day and age.
Right.
And that's when I got involved with the MIT class. And here's what happened. So the way the class structures, it was a full semester course, about 20 hours a week for 3 months. Um, you get together and it's an online class with about 3,000 students. You submit a project, and based on the submissions, the class would then vote on the top 160 projects that they wanted to pursue. If your project was picked, you would be called the capstone leader of that
Right.
project. If it wasn't, you would have to go find a project, and maximum 5 people per project. So, and then you work together as a team for the entire semester. And at the end of the semester, you submit your project for evaluation. And as it turned out, my project got picked, and then our team actually won one of the top 4 slots in the class from the professor picks.
Wow.
So that's how it worked, and that's when I started to get involved. And I said, "Hey, this thing really is interesting," and that's what really started the whole passion in blockchain for me.
All right. So far, what you've told us is your history. You've told us how you first got interested in blockchain, your first effort at that MIT course, and then you left and aligned yourself with Oracle. So, AuraBlocks, What is it? What kind of company is it? And what's the focus of this company?
Sure. The company is very simple mantra. What we do is three things. Really, we just do education, all blockchain, education in blockchain. We also build proof of concepts or POCs and do systems integration. We also do delivery of solution product, all on Oracle's blockchain built on Hyperledger Fabric. So that's all we do, those three things on Oracle's blockchain. What we've actually expanded of recent, because when we started it, it was like, oh yeah, we had these visions of grandeur,
Right.
right? But didn't really quite work out exactly like we thought. Where we're at right now is we've added the idea of distributing and onboarding other companies' solutions that are Hyperledger Fabric
Right.
based that are very much towards beta, or actually close to solution. So we're looking for fully built out kinds of products or solutions that we can onboard onto the Oracle platform and distribute. Because what we've been able to do is really make a lot of inroads into Oracle. And when people in Oracle ask, hey, who can we get to help us with some blockchain stuff? Invariably our name now
Right.
comes up. So so because of that effort that we've put in and made a lot of friends at Oracle, the sales teams want to be able to offer products. So any product, and there's no product really at this point. So anything that we bring on to the platform is going to give anyone that we're working with first mover
Sure.
advantage. And we've got access. Yeah, it's great. So we've got access to help them and accelerate their solution into the Oracle ecosystem and be able to really help them. And that's how we're looking for some monetization of the blockchain.
Okay. So, what areas of blockchain are used in enterprise? I mean, you now have literally a front row seat seeing what all these people are doing. So, what kind of solutions are being used in enterprise right now?
What we also, I failed to mention this, but what we also have is we got this focus. Our focus is really right now it's financial and insurance, working in those two areas. Obviously, because my background,
Right.
and that it makes a lot of sense, right? Uh, but that's what it is. The focus of financial and insurance. We're actually looking a little bit, starting to just a little bit into the medical area. So whether it's life sciences, pharmaceuticals, or basically the healthcare industry,
Sure.
that's we're also starting to look there. So there in the financial industry, we're seeing there's basically a couple structures that are there. There's the consortia structure, which makes a lot of sense for blockchain. It's actually the best use of blockchain if you can really get collaboration. But consortia, or internally for an efficiency play. There's also a hybrid kind of concept, which is when blockchain is being used where the founder or the network is really controlled by a company. So I'll give you an example of that. We were working with this media company, and the media company on one side of the table has all of the advertisers like a Coke, Pepsi,
Right.
those kinds of big companies, plus ad agencies, whether it's BBDO, J. Walter Thompson, whomever. The only reason I know these is because of my background in the music business. I was doing a lot of advertising
Sure.
music for. But anyway, the so that's on one side. On the other side of the equation, you've got your consumers of all the media, whether it be print media, TV, the standard radio stuff, or the digital media and the social media channels. So the challenge is when, let's say, Coke says we want to spend $1 million in this part of the world. The question is, do does Coke really have, through the media channels, do they really have that allocated properly? And then when they send it out and they do these media buys all over, did they really run the ads when they were supposed to, and confirmation and all of that stuff? So in the center is an organization that has all of this verification and all of this work going on. And they so as a consortia, they own, let's say, 60-70% of the marketplace in
Right.
the United States that does that. And there's, let's say, $150 billion of media that goes back and forth. So they, as the traffic cop in the center, want to make sure it's all done. So they become the consortia founder or the network founder, and they onboard all of these media companies that are the consumers on one side and the buyers and the sellers, basically, and they put that all together, and they're in the middle as a traffic cop. And that makes a lot of sense. That would be a hybrid version where internally they want to own the consortia because they own a good part of the marketplace.
Right.
So what we have seen, though, is in the financial industry, a lot of focus on reconciliation, internal reconciliation efficiencies. They have the monetization aspect is always going to be there. They're always looking for a return on investment, the ROI, but I don't really think that it's there yet. They got to stick their toe in the water and they're all playing with it. But the use cases that I see coming that are the ones that we're looking to solve are a lot of reconciliation stuff. So, in other words, give me an example. Um, this company has operations. They're a luxury company, and they have operations in 40 different countries. So these three countries right here want to. There's an invoice that goes intercompany between one and the other because they're doing stuff, but it's not on the retail. It's intercompany invoicing for lines of
Right.
businesses. So what they need to do is reconcile all those because they're literally all done by hand, and there are like 6,000 of these a year that go through, and it's just a big pain in the butt. And they have a lot of friction, a lot of cost to do, a lot of manpower. It goes real slow. So by putting this together on a, let's say, one central source of truth that everyone has a real-time update to, blockchain, now the intercompany invoices can be reconciled instantly. And that's the process with blockchain. So that's not uncommon. We see that a lot in the financial industry, in the insurance industry, just as a repeated process.
Great. So one of the things that you've mentioned a couple of times is that your decision to actually build on Hyperledger Fabric. Now, Hyperledger has Fabric, they have Sawtooth, and a couple other versions out there. Why did you choose Fabric over any of these others? And do you feel that Fabric, I mean, it's still in its nascent stages. Is it strong enough to actually support enterprise grade applications?
You know, I, I would say that I didn't choose Fabric. It was Oracle that chose
Okay.
Fabric. I just hopped on the boat and I'm just being pulled along for the
You
ride,
jumped
I
on the
hope.
Oracle boat, and
But
there you go.
yeah, yeah, or got on the bus,
Right.
whatever they call it. But but yeah, really that's it. I see. I hear things now. I'm not enough of a technologist to know the answer to this stuff, but I hear things where people have started building on Fabric, and then they said, "Oh, we can't use Fabric because it has the Byzantine fault tolerant BFT. It's not really there." And then
Consensus,
some
right.
people said.
Right.
Yeah, some people say, well, now it's been solved on version 1.4. Um, so there's some technical issues there that may or may not be true. I don't know what the story is, but all the big companies seem to have adopted Fabric. And Sawtooth is interesting, but IBM, SAP, Oracle, all the big companies are using Fabric.
Right.
So if they're all using Fabric, there's an interoperability that can be said to be there, and that's makes a lot of sense. So as far as a choice, Fabric, I didn't really choose anything there. But what I do hear, what's kind of interesting, I have a friend who's a 35-year developer. He was like he drank the Kool-Aid of Hyperledger, and he's like all in. And he was Sawtooth, 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 Sawtooth all the
Right.
way until yeah, and that was until he went out to Basel in Switzerland, or Basel, Switzerland, for Hyperledger's first global convention. When he came back from that, he said, "Richard, it looks like it's going to be looks like Sawtooth isn't going to make it, so I'm going to switch over to Fabric." so, so I think that was it. And AWS just introduced their blockchain service platform with Fabric, so there's a lot of traction that's going on with Fabric. Microsoft is into that as
Right.
well. So yeah, it just makes a lot of sense.
So here's then the question I have for you. So, what do you think about the hype of blockchain? Is it going to actually be realized, in your opinion? And do you think that we're at a level that enterprises can actually feel that the technology is sufficiently mature to support what they're trying to do?
It's funny, the hype cycles. I didn't even understand the word hype cycles until just recently, quite frankly. But yeah, when I look back, I saw what happened on the internet hype cycle. The same thing with the dot-com bubble burst and the real estate bubble burst, and that's exactly what happened with cryptocurrency. The hype cycle jumped in blockchain. Everyone thought it was going to be, just take off to the moon, just like there was going to be no more need for brick and mortar stores with the internet. But obviously that doesn't work, and the cycle, goes up, it crashes, and then it starts to build up. They call it S
Right.
curves, and the S curve is like how much time does the time that it takes for a company to go from, or an industry or a technology to go from 0 to 10% market penetration is the same time it takes to go from 10% to 90% penetration. So, as far as where we are in the cycle of the internet, during the 90s, really had no traction. It was just more of a curiosity. But 10 years later, it's like ubiquitous. It's everywhere. No one can live without it. We're basically at that same point on a 20-year curve. If hopefully it'll be faster, but it's at that point where they're starting to get a lot more traction in the enterprise space. And what I see is blockchain in the enterprise space took a little bit of a pause when the cryptocurrencies crashed because people got scared and they started relating blockchain. Yeah, I'm constantly dealing with that conversation. Oh, blockchain, that's that Bitcoin stuff, right? Well, yes, no, right? But the reality is, it's just been now on a steady pace, penetrating into the enterprise space. So I do think it will, and that's why I came into this industry. Because I looked at this and I said to myself, yeah, this is going to be a big, big deal, as big as the internet. It's just a layer on top of the internet. It's the blockchain's the layer of trust. It's digital trust. So I believe it's going to be very, very powerful, and that's why I stay with it. It's a little slow getting going, but I really believe that in the next 2 years will be a very powerful transition period. I see already in China, when I look at spends of companies and what's going on, uh, the Chinese spend of where decisions are being made blockchain wise are in a very different place. Here in the United States, we're looking at approaching decision making capabilities are approached from the technology side. So as you knock on doors, you're knocking on the technology doors. In other places of the world where blockchain is a lot more developed and mature, you've got business people making decisions about blockchain. So it's not about will blockchain work or how does it work. It's more like where are we going to apply it to get our most efficient use and most efficiency and lower the friction costs and all that stuff. Those are business decisions. So we got a ways to go here in the U.S. before we get there, but there are other countries like UK and China that are spending a lot more money on blockchain development
Oh,
than we are.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, yeah, it's really. I think it's probably because of all of uh, the the regulatory environment that's so litigious here in the United States. You just can't move. Whereas in undeveloped or developing countries, they're leapfrogging because of technology. They don't have to deal with the lobbyists of the infrastructure world. They can just leap over that. That's why China's been able to adopt it so fast. But I think we've got a secondary opportunity here, because once we get the regulatory environment where we want it to be, you're going to see this STO, the security token offering. This is my version of it. Um, I'm kind of mixing a bunch of things here, but where ICOs, took off, the problem was that there was no equity attached, and it was only by adoption of the marketplace that the tokens would gain value, and they didn't, because that whole thing really was not really set up right. But once you get the security laws right, where the tokens are security based, and you get the institutional investors coming in, Now you're going to have a real surge in equity when the institutions start to embrace this. And as far as an IPO, I think the new version will be STO, and that's when everything's really going to shift. And that's not going to be too far away. I think that could actually happen, start that whole thing by the end of 2019. And countries like Dubai have a mandate to get their government on blockchain by 2020. So it's all maturing globally quite rapidly. It's just that US is a little slower to make things happen. That's my version of it.
That's a good version of it. Well, one of the things that AuraBlocks has done is you worked with Oracle to create the Carolina FinTech Hub Hackathon. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, we Oracle had never done anything like this, a hackathon. It was like a first concept for them. So we got involved with that as education. We said, "Hey, we're willing to step up and help out here." And that's what it was. So the Carolina FinTech Hub was rather a newly created entity, nonprofit, of course, and all these major financial institutions were part of the hub. You had all the major banks, and as you know, Charlotte, North Carolina, is I think the number two or number
Financial center,
three,
right?
yeah, outside of New York.
Right.
I think Stanford. It keeps going back and forth between San Francisco and Charlotte. Anyway, great place to expand and get known. So we jumped on that opportunity quick, and we joined in with the Carolina FinTech Hub, brought in by Oracle, and we were the mentors and made that whole thing happen. So we did, well, I can't say we were the only, but did all the training and all the education that went into that. We stayed there, up around the clock, 24 so something hours, right?
Right.
And we just trained all those people. We're there on site to help them all. It was funny. Put a video together, you got the pizza everywhere and the Coke, everyone's like all pumped. The next morning we come in, it's like everyone's falling asleep and they're just hanging on. But it was great. We worked into the evening and did the whole presentation. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And that was the first for everybody.
Right. I actually watched the
Yeah.
videos on your website.
Oh, you did.
Of course, you have to prepare for an interview. So here's a question. We're going to go back to blockchain. So, what do you
Sure.
think the industry is going to do with regards to deploying permissioned or unpermissioned, more commonly referred to as public or private blockchains? What are your thoughts about that?
I think what's going to happen, there's going to be a convergence. In other words, you've got these very staunch, everything's got to be public, 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 public. Blockchain only exists for the public as the public good and all of that. I believe that. That's great. But because of the way consensus protocols work in the public, you can't get the speed, and no company, financial institution right now is willing to take sensitive information and put it into the public blockchain, right?
Right.
So, so the permission world is still you need to have the small controlled environment where you have the right entities controlling very sensitive data, whether it be hospitals or financial, personal, whatever. So those two are very spread apart right now. But as you get used to things and people are comfortable with the idea that it's a safe world as far as the your information is being safe and encrypted and made safe on a blockchain, they're going to get more comfortable with merging those two where they're going to blend public with the private or permissioned, and it's going to be a confluence of the two. Think about this. I remember, you know, credit cards and the internet.
Right.
Man, there was no way that I was going to give anybody on that internet my credit card. No way. But now I think nothing of it, as long as feeling comfortable, of course. It's not a
Right.
weird
Right.
sight, but they ask me for the credit card. Here's the information because I feel a certain level of that it's going to be encrypted properly or protected properly, and that's going to be the same way that these financial institutions will feel about blockchain as it moves towards the center towards public, or more broadly accepted with more people. The big deal right now is if something happens and you're on the public blockchain and there's sensitive information, it gets breached. Who's at fault?
Right.
You know, is it the whole world, all the miners, everyone, right? So that's the problem there. So if it's permissioned, you've got a very controlled environment if something goes
So
wrong,
what are your
and of course,
No,
nothing ever goes
nothing.
wrong.
So what are your thoughts about cryptocurrencies? Do you think that they have a place in enterprise blockchains?
Yeah, I really do because, uh, and yeah, it's yet to be figured out how this all going to come together with these different protocols like EOS or you know NEM or whatever for the different structures that blockchain can be based on. But cryptocurrency, every single version of what's going on in the insurance world or financial world is going to have some sort of a payment associated with it, and all those payments are essentially cryptocurrencies. So the big thing right now is now we have the stable
Right.
coins, they call them. So you got the Stellar network. Uh, so you have a network built on Stellar, and Stellar is the basically what happens is, let's say you got the Philippines and you got the U.S. Stellar's structure, which is it's an ORG. It's like a non for profit. What it does is like it would be a coin that would purchase the U.S. dollars. So you turn your dollars into this Stellar Network coin, and then the Stellar Network coin goes over to the Philippines and then converts that into Philippine dollars. So that's the exchange. And what they've done is they also added a stable coin to that network. So I think it's IBM has a network called for trade, and they put the strong coin on there, the cryptocurrency, which is a stable coin. So stable coins are definitely going to have an element here. I think JP Morgan with Jamie Dimon, they just introduced the JP Morgan JPM coin, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so here's the guy that said, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency will never be worth anything into our marketplace and enterprise. And within about a year and a half, he's already talking about and released a coin with JP Morgan. So I think there's going to be a strong play for cryptocurrency in the space.
Okay. So for my final question for you, what do you think is going to happen with blockchain over the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, blockchain over the next 5 to 10 years. I think in 10 years, I think it's going to be as commonplace as the internet is today. People will be using it. It's they won't be thinking about it. First of all, it's going to be like electricity. In other words, blockchain. It's not. No one's going to be talking about it as like what to do, what's the protocol, or things like that. It'll just be you know like you plug into the wall, and the wall behind the wall, it's always going to come out as 120 volts, 60 cycles, but you don't know whether it's hydroelectric power or it's coal power or nuclear power. You don't know, or how it's being maintained. It's just always going to be there. And that's what blockchain is going to be. It's just going to be a part of the part of the protocol of the internet. It's just going to be assumed to be part of it as the safety measure. So that's the 10-year horizon. Over the next 5 years, and that's going to be global. Over the next 5 years, it's going to be a struggle just to get the financial companies, the insurance companies, and all the different institutions to communicate. So I think
Why do you
maybe
think that barrier's there? I mean, you know,
because
when people thought about 2016, that was the year of proof of concept, and 2017 then became again the year of proof of concept, and 2018 was then going to be the enterprise rollout. And 2018 came and went, and now we're in 2019, and we're still waiting for something. So, and now you're saying that in 5 years they're still going to be struggling with communicating with one another.
Yeah, I think what'll happen is that there's going to be an adoption of blockchain at the enterprise level, and it's going to be a lot of blockchains, but they may not be able to interoperate as easily as you think. So think about it like this. Um, the real estate business, the real estate industry, when I go to a municipality and list, I buy or sell a home, transfer a property, they enter my document, my deed, into a book, whether it's electronic or digital, and sits there in the municipality's office, and you can go find it in the register. But what happens is that all of the municipalities are basically working the same way. Your document is filed in the municipal office. If a few of these municipalities get together and decide they want to utilize blockchain so they can track that document, so the title insurance companies now have a history of all the transitions and all of the modifications to the property, which is great, which is one great use for blockchain. That's wonderful, but there's maybe 3 or 4 municipalities that got together to split the cost of building that little consortia.
Right.
And now you got another one on a different system that does the same thing over in Midwest, and you got another one in the Southeast, and you got another one, and they got big ones and small ones, and now you've got a bunch of different blockchain systems with possibly a lot of different blockchain communication structures that are not as easily interoperating as basically just sending a document or going to the office and seeing it. They're all going to be on these different structures. So to get all of that now to tie together interoperably is going to be where the standards need to come in. And the standards being dictated at the highest level of the government, I think that's going to take a long time to get those standards here in the United States, let alone globally. So that's why I think it's going to be it's a 5-year project to get that underway.
Right. Well, I want to thank you, Richard, for coming on to the Blockchain 360 podcast, sharing a little bit about your history and what you're doing at AuraBlocks. And I know I wanted to make it Aurora, so I don't know why.
Maybe we should change the name. That's what we should probably do. Change it to Aurora. I think a lot of people do that, so maybe we should just change it and call it a day.
Right. Well, you could, that's absolutely your decision. But it's been a pleasure to have you. If you're interested, if any of you listeners are interested, of course, you can visit this website at aurablocks.com. You can follow them on Twitter at AuraBlocks LLC. And again, please share with your friends and family all of our podcasts. Make sure that you vote for us on any platform that you access us on, and be sure to share with your family and friends so that we can expand our listener community. Thank you again, Richard, and thank you for joining us here on the Blockchain 360 podcast.
A pleasure. Thank you so much, Brian.
The Blockchain 360 podcast is produced weekly. Have a question? Want us to interview someone specific? Wish to hear about a particular topic? Let us know. You can email podcast@blockchain360.co or tweet us on Twitter @blockchain360 or at our website blockchain360.co.